The problem with space games, in the words of The Hitchhiker's Guide, is that space is big. Space is empty. This was the problem with the first Endless Space game, a strategy game with some good ideas but a distinct lack of personality. Developers Amplitude remedied that in a big way with the award-winning fantasy game Endless Legend, which was nothing but personality. Now, with Endless Space 2, Amplitude is heading back into the void with added flavor. In Endless Space 2, this starts with the different races. As with most other science fiction grand strategy games, you start as a single race on a single planet, just beginning to explore the stars. What separates the Endless games is that the different races are tremendously different. Endless Space 2 has races with extreme focuses on science, militarism, and commerce, with empires like the warlike Cravers exhausting and destroying planets, forcing them to constantly keep moving. There's also the vampiric Vodiani, who don't actually live on planets. Instead, they enslave the races below. Beyond that, Endless Space 2 wants to have more focus on the internal population of an empire, including their demographics and desires. Every so often, you'll have elections where different factions, like militarists, scientists, and pacifists, have a chance to take part in the government. These allow for different laws, like one that gives a science-based empire more probes to explore planets with. But they could also get in your way, like if you want to fight a war with a pacifist government. If you do get into a war, Endless Space 2 has fast, simple space combat where you pick a tactic at the start of a fight and see what happens. While watching the battles is dramatic and reminiscent of classic science fiction like Star Trek and Babylon 5, it did seem oversimplistic. There are no options to change your ship's behavior mid-fight. Ship design, on the other hand, seems to strike a nice balance between depth and accessibility, with the option to swap out or remove different support, attack, and defense parts, offering a nice amount of customization without being overwhelming. One of the coolest aspects of Endless Space 2 is the detailed exploration of each planet. Most new worlds you encounter have a few anomalies, which your exploration ships can send probes to investigate. This mechanic gives a neat personal flair to exploring, while also making interesting choices about which planets should get the limited number of probes. Endless Space 2 is headed into Steam's early access this fall, and take heed, there were consistent glitches and crashes, not to mention only 4 races right now. But there's a bunch of potential in Endless Space 2, making it worth checking out at some point down the road. For more on Endless Space 2's progress, stick with IGN.